Welcome to the Bree Pod. I'm here with me, Bree. So it has been a bit since we last spoke. I shared a lot of the things that went down in my relationships. We still have yet to discover how did Jeremy and I get together. I know some of you know, but I also realized that I still have yet to share a little bit of my endo story. And for those of you that don't know what endo is, endometriosis is a disorder in which tissue, similar to the tissue that forms the lining of your uterus, grows outside of your uterine cavity. And the lining of your uterus is called the endometrium. So what happens is the hormonal changes of your menstrual cycle affect the misplaced endometrial tissue, causing that area to become inflamed and painful. This means the tissue will grow, thicken, and break down. Over the time, the tissue has broken down and it has nowhere to go, so it becomes trapped in your pelvis. And that's where it causes irritation, scar formation, adhesions, severe pain during your periods, and then leading to fertility problems. So that's the medical version of what endometriosis is. But for me, it has been about over 10 years um, before I reached an actual term for what was going on. Because when I started, I thought that my symptoms were all GI related because I also have IBS. And so I just assumed that maybe, I was going to the GI doctors and not realizing that I needed to go to the OBGYN or to find someone that knew endometriosis. So I also didn't know how much endo can affect your body because actually IBS and endo, Crohn's and endo, PCOS and endo, and fibromyalgia and endo, all of these things can coincide together. Not saying that they're not different, but it's not uncommon for someone to have endo and something else. So in February of 2020, my husband and I were in Arizona for his job, and I have always wanted children. But when I had started trying, nothing was happening. So I decided that I need to find myself an OBGYN. I did have an idea that I had endo, but it was only because my friend's mom sat me down and said, "Hey, have you looked into endo?" And she said this when I was living with that friend. But that was like, oh my goodness, that was like 2012 maybe. Yeah, that was a while back. And at that time, it's not that I didn't believe her. I was just like, no, it can't be that. I just kind of brushed it off and was continuing down the GI route. Well, when I went to the GI doctor, unfortunately, they wanted to say that all of the symptoms, including acid reflux, I had acid reflux, I had stomach issues, was all just purely anxiety. That was it, including the painful period. So they had tried to prescribe me some anxiety medicine. So I tried to go through the GI doctor. They're like, no, it's anxiety. You don't have acid reflux, which I did have acid reflux. And to this day, the only reason why I feel like I have that health stuff figured out is because with all those years, you start to figure out on your own what you can and cannot eat. So at the time, I still, not listening, didn't go try to look into endo. I still was going down the path of the GI. So I decided I wanted a second opinion because I felt like the first doctor just instantly called it anxiety and brushed me off. And I'm not a person that likes to go to the doctor. I'm really not a person that wants to be there. And I felt like I was treated like someone that is, there for not the best reasons, like not genuine. I honestly want to avoid the doctor. I don't like doing it, but you have to help yourself when you are not feeling well. So I tried to get a second opinion, and it didn't go very well because my first doctor called my second GI, both of them are GIs, my second GI, and basically told him, hey, she has anxiety. So he didn't even bother doing any scopes or any tests. This is where I want to introduce a topic that I think we're going to get deeper into, but I'm going to find someone that's professionally, um, you know, educated in it. But this is where my medical trauma came into play. And a medical trauma is an emotional and physical response to pain, injury, serious illness, medical procedures, and frightening treatment experiences. There are lots of experiences related to illness, injury, or medical treatment that can be difficult, uncomfortable, or frightening. I bring this up because we are going to have someone to come in and talk about medical trauma because that is a real thing. And for me, it became very real because I felt very let down at that point. Um, my second GI was throwing anxiety in my face. And again, it's not the fact that I didn't have anxiety. I'm well aware on that. It's just the anxiety can't control every single bit of symptoms that were going on at that time. So anyway, fast forward back to when we're in Arizona. Um, I was starting to try to build my family with Jeremy. And so I'm like, I really need to get into seeing an OBGYN. I need to look into endometriosis. And I should add, before I officially got myself an appointment, I entered in all of the endometriosis groups on Facebook. Um, and everything that they were saying, I related to. I could sense that, yeah, actually I do have this. But the problem is, even though you have a term, but you don't have evidence that you have it, that part always feels upsetting because you're like, I really feel I have this, but I don't feel like I have enough proof. And I kind of felt like an imposter, which I need you guys to know that if you are feeling that you have something, I highly recommend going into the groups and following because sometimes, or most of the time, it's actually pretty accurate. Of course, you have to go through the tests and all that stuff, but a lot of things and methods of coping, I was actually sent um, through the group. So it was very helpful. But anyway, so I went to the OBGYN finally, and I said, hey, listen, I am fairly certain that I have endometriosis. Um, and I wanted to find out if I had it or not. Unfortunately, the only way to find out truly if you have endometriosis is through surgery. So the doctor, the first time around, he made me feel uncomfortable because he basically said, yeah, I mean, you can definitely have the surgery done, but just know that like I've done a lot of these surgeries and it can go either way, where, I normally don't actually find any endometriosis. That made me nervous because then I felt again my imposter syndrome was coming in because I'm like, oh no, what if I go through with this surgery and then I find out that I don't have it? And now I've spent a lot of money on myself that was unnecessary and I've wasted everybody's time. But I had a bad feel like I had this gut feeling that something was not right about him, but I just was like so desperate for a change that I didn't listen to myself and I scheduled the surgery with him anyway. Um, and I should say within the 10 years, I have always been doing research, looking into things. I've been to OBGYNs here and there, but I wasn't as serious because the medical trauma of going to the GIs, talking to them, it just, I didn't think that people could help me. Um, so I do know that a part of the reason why there's so many women that don't have a term for what's going on until like 10 years later is because a lot of that time, yes, you're doing tests and you're looking into it and you're finding out like what you do have, what you don't have. But the other part of the time, you're questioning if you're really actually having this or you're just making it up because that's how people make you feel in the medical industry that don't understand what it is. And a lot of the people that I were talking to were not educated in endometriosis. There was a time that I didn't realize my period was coming. And my friend and I were going to explore around where we were living because we just moved there. But all of a sudden, I got this really intense pain. It just kind of shocked me how painful it was. And it brought me almost to my knees. So I had to run back to the house to lay down because I knew what was about to occur. I'm like, my period's coming. Unfortunately, though, I was in so much pain that I did not tell my friend what was going on. So she thought she was wondering she was like, what the heck are you doing? And I didn't tell her, but I wasn't thinking straight at the time. And so I ended up locking myself in the downstairs bedroom and I locked myself in the bathroom and I tore off all my clothes and I just laid in a ball crying and just begging and praying that the pain would stop. And I've had that happen multiple times. So it's definitely more when they say when we, it's a bad period. It's like no, it's more. Um, and so it's kind of become a thing where with my family and Jeremy, they're used to that happening, so they know that I'm probably going to be out for the count when it does come. Also, for me personally, if I do not take ibuprofen on time, like when it's about to start, and take it every 4 hours, then it doesn't matter if I take medicine or not, or I don't know if I should say medicine, but painkillers or not, because it will still um, it will still be painful on top of the meds and on top of a heating pad. So I was desperate at this point. The way that he portrayed Endo to me felt like I was the liar, even though I was not. He just felt like, well, we can do surgery, but we don't always find endo. So you might not have it. But I mean, if you still want to do it, we can do it. And that felt very uncomfortable to me because I already have had a not so great experience with the GI doctor. So that goes back to my medical trauma. Well, COVID ended up saving me because later when I spoke to my aunt, I had told her about the surgery, what was going on with this doctor. And she said, why are you going to someone that you don't trust or know? And truly, it was out of desperation. I just wanted it to be done. Sick of feeling the pain, and I just wanted some relief. Um, And then COVID saved me by canceling that appointment because it's supposed to happen. So that was February. We're in Arizona. The surgery was scheduled for April. And then, as you know, it was about March that everything started getting shut down. So they had to cancel my appointment. Well, because my aunt had given me the idea that I should probably trust my doctor, which it's sad that I went to that desperation, but at the same time, I'm happy that I was saved from it. But at the same time, I'm not saying that I'm for COVID. It's just that I'm glad that it did save me from a botched surgery. Because when I spoke to my new OBGYN, which I ended up choosing someone from the area that my aunt and uncle live, um, because they really do have really amazing doctors over in Massachusetts. Um, she told me, so at our very first consultation, because of COVID, we were able to meet over video. And at our very first consultation, she let me know that uh, had I gotten the surgery that he's going to give me, which is the one where they burn it out, I can't remember the terms off the top of my head right now. Um, I would have been spending more time like fixing that surgery. Um, so by not doing that, by scheduling with someone new, she was actually going to take it out by the root. And that made me feel scared that I almost put myself in a situation that was not the greatest, but at the same time, happy because she sounded like, for the first time in my life, someone knew what they were talking about with endo. And she told me that she made me feel comfortable and made me feel that it was normal, everything that I was feeling. And she truly believed I had it before, we went through with this. So in August, we finally get a surgery date, and everything worked out so well because I had a place to stay, a place to recover. My aunt and uncle offered their home to me. Jeremy happened to be off for a couple of weeks, and I think that was also due to the pandemic, but it was almost the timing was perfect. When the surgery day came, that's actually the first time I met my OBGYN in person. We had a lot of video chats, we had a lot of phone calls, uh, but I couldn't physically meet her until I came down in August because we went from Arizona to New York to Boston. Um, and when I got there, I was scared, but relieved that I was going to finally get some form of answer. The only thing that I was fearful of was, is it going to be endo or is it all in my head? Um, and so when I finally, which this I've never experienced before, but like when I was finally ready to go out into surgery, my OBGYN came in and actually spoke to me before I went under, and she sat with me until we went in. So after they put the anesthesia in, I was gone, then we went into surgery. And for you, when you're under anesthesia, it's like 5 minutes, but for everybody else, it could be an hour to 2 hours, and not including the time that you're hovering. So when I finally woke up, I heard a nurse talking to me, but I could not really see her because I think I was still coming out of, the anesthesia. And I remember, I don't know if I said this loud, but I remember being like, hello, hello, can you hear me? Can you see me? Because I didn't know if I was dreaming. And the nurse came up and I could only see the outline of her. She had this curly black hair. And I was just like, you're just so pretty. You have the most beautiful hair. Um, and then I remember thinking when I woke up the second time, um, I regret having the surgery. But I think it was just because I was scared on how the recovery process was going to happen. And it was already done at this point. So there was no going back. But I wanted to know, did I have endo or not? And unfortunately, though, with COVID, you don't really get to see anybody in recovery this time. So they had to call Jeremy, let him know I was awake. And I saw Jeremy, and I'll tell you what, I did not know how bad the potholes were in Massachusetts until I had surgery. Because I swear that car hit every single pothole. I can't blame Jeremy because he didn't put the potholes there, but the car seemed to hit every single one of them. But the truth is, I think it's just that they were always there, but you really feel it with surgery. Um, so after Jeremy got me situated at my aunt's and uncle's apartment, he told me that the doctor had called him and let him know that she did find endometriosis. And I was a mixture of emotions because with change, I had a bit of a hard time during the recovery process. And not because um, everything wasn't healing correctly, everything was going fine. The scars were healing, starting their healing process. I didn't have any infections, but I mentally was not doing well because I was scared to see what my quote unquote new body was going to look like. And I know that sounds vain, but this is not from a vanity place. For me, I have struggled with my image. Um, I guess that is vanity in a way, but I've struggled with my own body. And it's because it's another thing that we'll eventually get into. But I was scared to see what's going to happen to me. And are these scars going to be so big that it takes over who I am as a person? And I'm sure many of you that have had surgery and that have felt like things are getting altered have felt this way. But that's why I named this My Scars Only Tell Part of My Story, because I had to learn that it's not an ugly thing because there's going to be scars, and actually they're really small. So I really think I was worried for nothing, but um, I've always had an issue with my body and probably borderline or fully body dysmorphia. And that's something that we will get into later. But I was scared of what was going to happen because I had kept the bandages on, and after a few days, I was allowed to take them off. But I sat in the bathroom crying with Jeremy in there, and I said, I don't want to take these off because I don't want to see my body like this. And my husband had to remind me that, you know, these scars, first off, are going to be small because the doctor told me that they would be, and that it doesn't make me, and like these scars are a part of my story. They're not something that is negative. And it's okay what it does to my body because the whole point of this was to find an answer. Um, and so I finally, with his help, took these bandages off and realized that it wasn't so bad. Um, and found that, you know, I'm sure many people have gone through these feelings because surgery isn't just a physical thing, it's also can be a very emotional thing, especially when you have a form of body dysmorphia. Um, and that's something that I'm working on. And after I had this done, that's actually around the time that I started searching for help for my mental health. Because at the end of the day, the with my relationships, with the way that I look at my body, with the way I felt, with the way that the endo has made me feel. There's so many factors where I'm very happy that I have months later reached out to get help because I needed it. Now I'm going to go into the part of affirmations, but this time I'm leaving us with one affirmation. And it says, don't ever be ashamed of the scars life has left you with. A scar means the hurt is over and the wound is closed. It means you conquered the pain, learned a lesson, grew stronger, and moved forward. A scar is the tattoo of a triumph to be proud of. Don't allow your scars to hold you hostage. Don't allow them to make you live your life in fear. You can't make the scars in your life disappear, but you can change the way you see them. You can start seeing your scars as a sign of strength and not pain. And with that being said, you are loved, you are worthy, you are cherished, and I am proud of you. Until next time on WePod. For those of you that are looking for more affirmations, click the link below because I did start Wednesday text messages weekly, and you can get an affirmation the morning of before the episode comes out. Bye.